Hey, hi, how you doing? This is the Gamertron, and welcome back to the Gamertron Show, and welcome to another very special commentary podcast thing. I am joined once again by Johan.
Hello, everyone.
And today we are, well, this is kind of subjective, but in my opinion, and the opinion of quite a few people nowadays, horror movies nowadays, the big blockbuster horror movies we go to see in theaters to go get scared, they suck. There hasn't been a good horror movie in years. And I'm being serious. Sure, we've had a few entertaining slasher flicks, but when's the last time we've had a pure, terrifying horror movie? It's been a long time, I would say. And right now, a certain medium has been taking the place with the horror genre specifically, and that's video games. Magnificent, simply magnificent horror video games have been coming out recently. To give some examples, Outlast, Slender the Arrival, Slender the Eight Pages, Amnesia the Dark Descent, and this game that you are looking at gameplay right now of, Alien Isolation, which I am going to be playing for you, and try not to scream like a little bitch while we try to talk about horror games and how they are surpassing horror movies nowadays. So let's start off with the big daddy that started the whole survival horror. Well, just rebooted the survival horror video game genre in general. Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Johan, you may have the stage. I'm about to start the game. Here we go.
Well, Amnesia is a really good game Yeah, of course it's a really good game. I started playing, a while back, I suppose. It's been a while since I played it last time, but I like it. It has this atmosphere. I think one of the most important things that this game got right in the first try was the atmosphere. You're alone in a castle. You have no idea of who you are or why you're even there. And you have these monsters chasing you from one edge of a room to another, and just with only an oil lamp as your sole salvation as you're slowly going insane while trying to survive. The first time I laid eyes on Amnesia was when watching PewDiePie. Of course, the most famous YouTuber on YouTube. It's thanks to him that a lot of us have had a chance to play many horror games, and he's just a lot of fun to watch as he plays the games. And okay, I've been playing another game, and I actually thought I could concentrate. I thought I could talk while I was, but I couldn't, so I'm just gonna turn it off then.
Alrighty then. I'm also trying to concentrate and keep my thoughts. I'm legitimately terrified right now, playing Alien Isolation. Oh God. Anyways, continue, Johan.
Okay. I thought Amnesia looked kind of silly at first. I thought it looked kind of funny. Funny and silly because the monsters looked funny and silly. Of course, they look terrified too, and they look even worse when you're actually forced to confront them. And the worst thing you could ever have in that game was to around a corner and suddenly hear the of the enemies as they come lumbering around a corner, or the wail noises the brutes made. Previously, we had games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill pretty much taking the center stage of horror, but Resident Evil kind of stopped being a horror game and moving on to being more action-oriented and becoming more of a silly Hollywood action flick. I guess the Resident Evil movies rubbed off on that. Thankfully, we never had a Mila, I'm a fucking goddess Jokovic, or in God mode engaged, and it still kept to the original characters, like the classic ones. Still, poor Chris Redfield. And Silent Hill, while they still kept the traditional horror elements through and through in the town and being more of a psychological journey for the protagonists. They haven't really had any really great hits that has really caught the attention, mostly because critics critics that are not have stopped being gamers and are more akin to corporate thugs, or are being paid off to lie about something, or when they not get paid, they usually just say, "Oh, this game is terrible." It's really difficult to get honest reviews from the gaming journalist medium, so we just have to focus
fuck,
on
I'm
the
dead.
gaming community.
Sorry.
Alien got you. Alien got you.
You gave me that lovely xenomorph kiss on the cheek. Oh boy. Again.
Oh, how cute.
Anyways, yes,
Again.
continue. Sorry.
So, hopefully the new Silent Hills, produced by, I think it is, actually, I do think it is the subject of the latest video, Hideo Kojima. Yeah, it is Hideo Kojima, and I can't get it right. Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, del Toro.
Oh, yeah.
Love del Toro.
We just del Toro. Yes. So that's bound to be interesting, because Del Toro is a big admirer of Lovecraft. In case you didn't notice it in his his movies Hellboy, and Hellboy 2, the Golden Army, I think it was called. Actually, I haven't seen it myself, but I heard rumor that if you look closely, you can actually spot one of Lovecraft's creatures, an elder thing, hanging around in a corner somewhere. So I really want to see the movie just so I can spot this Easter egg. So I'm really looking forward what he will do with Silent Hill. He actually wanted to produce a Hollywood movie of Lovecraft's novel At the Mountains of Madness, but it was kind of shut down because Hollywood wanted a happy ending, and they wanted a love interest, and I want to go and lobotomize whoever thought that Lovecraft, just because his name is Lovecraft, he must be associated with romance. You fucking idiots. Moving on. So we haven't really had any good horror game in a while, and then Amnesia comes skulking in the dark and attacks us, and moving onwards, we also get Slender, and down the lines, horror games are really on a, what are you going to say? They're back with a vengeance, or something like that. Of course, Amnesia isn't the best. It's not the best. It still has some issues, but when it first came out, and when it really came to focusing on actually scaring you and psychologically scar you with the insanity system, that you were slowly getting insane and started seeing things or hearing noises, that's when the game really gets really fun or really terrifying, depending on which side you're on. And also this shadow in the game that hunts you, these fleshy Silent Hill-like leftovers that just decided to sprawl out of nowhere and come and attack you. Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, well, if I were to give my take on Amnesia, I'd say what it got right is it took away what so many horror games were doing around that time. Like you said, Silent Hill and Resident Evil. They took away your only ways to protect yourself. They made the enemies invincible.
Oh yeah!
There was no way
to,
and this was, while this wasn't 100% new, it had been so long since it had been done. It felt new. It felt one of a kind because we're so used to having a gun or a melee weapon or something like that. Then Amnesia comes along and says, "You have none of that." And I'm dead again. Alright, anyways, but yeah, Amnesia comes along and it flips horror genre on its head, because people usually associated horror with Resident Evil and Silent Hill, even though I consider Resident Evil was always a silly zombie survival game, never true horror, unlike Silent Hill. But Amnesia came along and it made survival horror scary. It made it scary again. You felt scared. When it did another thing right. It made the enemies scary. You didn't want to see the enemies. Hell, in the game, through gameplay mechanics, if you looked at the enemies, there was a higher chance of you dying. You feared your opponents. It brought back fear. It made your adversary something to fear. And the same thing with Slender. When Slender came out, it was a phenomenon. This little indie horror game that came out of nowhere, and then boom.
Could push in here just quick. The probability of you dying isn't because they see, it's because you were looking at the enemies. You just lost your sanity. Of course, you are right in the statement. When you looked at these enemies, the idea is that they're so terrible, which goes back to Eldritch Horror and Lovecraft's works, is that you look at these things and you look at these things and your sanity would start dropping. Your sanity would start dropping faster, and you would make sounds when that happened, and thus the enemies would notice you and even spot you if you looked at them for too long. Just wanted to point that out.
Well, yeah, exactly. But point being, oh shit. Sorry, 1 second.
Point being, oh shit.
Sorry, fuck! Ah, he got me again, motherfucker.
I want to play this game. I want to play that game.
We will be talking about Alien Isolation very shortly. Anyways, yeah, Slender came out. It came out, and it was a phenomenon based off the creepypasta of a faceless creature that wears a suit and tie, has tentacles that spew forth from its back. Well, I will be honest, Slender has...
I've seen enough hentai to know where this is going.
I will be honest, I think that it's like this for a lot of people. Slender has been so... Since the horror indie game came out, he's kind of been overexposed, creepypasta and video game-wise. So he's desensitized. We're not really scared of him now. He's more something to make jokes of nowadays. But there's still an element of fear to him. Like, you keep mentioning Lovecraft, because Slender Man, one of the biggest fears, the things that make Slender Man scary, is the mystery. We don't know what it is and what he's about. And that kind of resonated within the Slender video games. We don't know what Slender is, and you don't entirely know what he's gonna do to you when he catches you. What these horror games did, what Amnesia and Slender did when they came out and they became big hits, is they let your imagination run wild. They let you scare yourself, not just the game. You scared yourself with the thoughts of, oh god, what's going to happen? I don't want to see this creature. What's going to happen when they catch me? Oh god, it's dark, I can't see. I want to see where I'm going. Is the monster right behind me, in front of me? That sort of thing. It brought back primal fear. It made you scare yourself, not just the game. The game mechanics made you scare yourself.
Yeah, and a lot of games now, a lot of these newer horror games, whether they may be blockbusters or indie, they seem to have taken notes and sort of looked back in the past and sort of scrounged up Lovecraft's works and sort of analyzed what made them scary. Lovecraft's works were always centered around a protagonist of some kind, discovering an ancient evil and having their journey. What Lovecraft really never did was fully explaining the monsters. Of course, he would in some cases. In the Mountains of Madness, he goes to explain. And Dagon could have been much better if he just had ended it with the protagonist fainting at the sight of the monsters that were roaming the town. But he just goes on to over-explain it and make it just a drivel. But other than that, he generally created a world of great mystery, of mystery and horror, and made humanity seem incredibly insignificant. And you feel insignificant while you play the game. You don't know anything about this orb or the place that Alexander von Brennenburg, what he wants to go back to. As he claims, he's from whatever dimension this orb originated from. He doesn't. You don't know that. You don't know what the orb is. You don't know what the darkness is. Only that it's some sort of guardian. And you don't know what the Slender Man is. The Slender Man is just some entity, just described as an entity, and that's about it. That's all you really need, because it's all about getting out alive.
Yes.
Now,
horror
often you don't really escape Slender Man.
Horror games brought back what made the original Silent Hills, the original survival horrors great. Mystery. It let your imagination run wild with fear, with questions.
The first Dead Space did that too. I think Dead Space was probably one of the a much better idea. This is probably how Resident Evil should have been like. The newer games, I mean. Yeah. This is how Resident Evil should have been like. Where Resident Evil just became a zombie apocalypse that threw monsters at you and eventually had zombies with guns for some damn reason. What's the difference? Just make them humans. In Dead Space, on the other hand, you actually had monsters that were warped. The game focused on creep factor, on shocking imagery, and shock and awe tactics. The enemies would jump out of nowhere and attack you as soon as they saw you. They would drop from ceilings, they would crawl out of vents, and they would attack you very quickly. They would pretend to be dead to lure you closer. Of course, of course, you have a weapon, so you are defended against them, but it doesn't take away the fact that they do scare you when
Yes.
they show up, and you do dread every moment when they are on screen. Because with a zombie, you know what you have, and with this Plagia plant or whatever it just doesn't become a zombie anymore. It becomes just some silly, goofy-looking monster. Granted, the insect theme is frightening, but it could have been pulled off much better. Body horror, that's Dead Space trademark. It's body horror in its finest form, very much like The Thing, John Carpenter's The
Yes,
Thing.
that's one of the reasons I love
And
Dead Space
again,
so much, because it's like the video game version of that movie, and I love John Carpenter's The Thing.
Dead Space 3 obviously more than any other
Yes.
game. And finally, looking back, the first game, again, the focus is on the unknown, the mystical, and very much Lovecraftian. We have this ancient artifact, the Marker, that has turned the crew into these monsters, and there's this crazy cult called Unitology that worships this thing and says it will ascend us into a higher plane of existence. Very much like a lot of cults in Lovecraft stories, where the cultists worship some ancient abominable evil that turns them into monster.
Sorry about that.
You got away.
I kind of shit bricks just a few seconds ago. Alien came up behind me, didn't know it was there. I tried my damnedest not to scream. Oh.
Well done. Well done. So again, we don't know what the Marker is, and we only know that we need to get the Marker away. And finally having this huge boss fight against this creature. At the very end, we're not really that scared of it anymore, because it's just a big monster and it's been hinted for a long while. But most other creatures were scary. The Hunter in Dead Space was scary because he would relentlessly chase after you, and even if you thought you got rid of him, you would still see him at times. You would catch a glimpse of his shadow or something as he stalks you through the ship, and he finally decides to attack you again. Dead Space 2 and 3, I'm sure they're scary on some parts, but it was more focused on action than actually being about surviving or being scared. With the exception maybe of the monster, the giant spider-like monster that you encounter in Dead Space 2. The problem from Dead Space 2 and 3 onward, where they try to over-explain it. They try to explain the Marker a little more. They try to explain Unitology's motives a little more. And I never played Dead Space 3, but I do understand it has something to do with a giant necromorph that is basically as big as the moon or something like that. And from the looks of it, it sounds like a pretty cool idea. I mean, a creature. What was it called? I think it was called something about the father or the parents or something like that.
Brother's Moon.
The moon. You played Dead Space 3, right? The Brother's Moon. Yeah. Well, regardless, away from Dead Space is what Resident Evil the 5 and 6 should have been, but instead it just became a straight up action. So. Instead, that was just straight up action, and Dead Space sort of brought it back to a genre where it was both scary, but you still had a fighting chance, and then it went the same direction as well, and just had action for the other two, with a few scares.
Yeah. But
so,
well, I will grant
personally,
it,
games
we're not
that
remove talk about Dead Space, but just to defend Dead Space free, it made sense that it became more action. It made sense in terms of the story. Like, Dead Space has always been a series that's getting bigger and bigger. Like, the first game concerned a ship and a small colony on a planet. Second game concerned an entire space station and basically a giant city. And the third and final game basically concerns, well, the whole universe. So it's supposed to get bigger and bigger. It's supposed to be less and less scary and more epic and more about preventing a giant space zombie apocalypse. So it makes sense in that regard.
Punching at Cthulhu.
However, getting back on track with horror games. So, Slender, Amnesia came out and shocked everyone. An indie game, and I guess Amnesia could be called an indie game. It was kind of independent.
It started off as an indie game, and then they got sort of more of a bigger budget and moved on to make the Amnesia a machine for pigs. But it started off as an indie game. It started off as maybe an indie indie game. Slender is the only one I can truly say for sure that it's definitely an indie game. Maybe Amnesia had a larger budget and had a company behind them, but to me they're sort of much like Red Barrels that made Outlast. They are new developers, they're a new team, and I would say they started out as indie and then got more and more attention and actually started working on it more, making additions and updates. Slender, for example, also the original Slender started off as an indie game, and it now is, I think it's purchasable or something. What was it, Slender the Arrival or something, that had more of a budget.
Yes.
So it slowly evolves. Indie games start off as something and then they become bigger in that regard.
Exactly. Well, anyways, yeah. So these, well, we can call them indie. So these games came out of nowhere, and they revitalized, they refreshed the horror video game genre, a genre which industry publishers and developers were constantly saying wouldn't be successful and wouldn't make money. Guess what, motherfuckers? It came out and it made a shit ton of money. And so, with the success of those two games, as you mentioned before, Red Barrel, this brand new indie developer, Red Barrel Games comes out with their horror game, Outlast. And just like those two games, it shocks and surprises everyone with the quality and how just damn scary it was. And
yeah, Outlast.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
When Outlast came out, it had a similar effect that Amnesia and Slender did. It dominated YouTube. It got a ton of popularity. Ton of people screamed and got scared by it, and it took similar elements from those games. Everybody kept calling it a Slender or an Amnesia clone, and I really don't like that. I really don't like people calling things clone. I will admit sometimes I call things COD clones, but that's because I'm unoriginal and I can't think of something else. I never first-person shooter maybe, but Outlast. I wouldn't say it was a clone. It was a different take on a working formula. I mean, Red Barrel obviously saw, okay, this is what made Amnesia and Slender good. Let's take that, put a different spin on it. Let's make not one thing that stalks and hunt you down. Let's make an entire mental asylum full of crazy patients that want to kill you. And not just that, let's throw in a bunch of jump scares to surprise the player. In Outlast, you're always on your toes. You never know what to expect, especially the first time you play it. Granted, Outlast is not the game for multiple playthroughs. It's the kind of game you play through once, you wait a long while, play it again, and it will still be scary.
Yeah, after I finished the game.
Sorry.
After I finished the game, I played it four more times because I really liked it that much, and as a result, I became less scared of it. Outlast for me was something that was really hyped. Everyone said it was scary, and they were right. Boy, it is really scary. Even on easiest difficulties, or well, maybe it just has normal, I think. It's still a very scary game. It's one of the scariest games I've played by far, or currently. And it just, like you said, it takes and improves and puts a different spin on a current formula. In Amnesia, basically what it took from Slender was the Stalker character. It was a singular entity that you can distinguish that would chase you through multiple areas of the asylum and then disappear and then show up again. Rather than in Amnesia, where you had the same type of energy with one, okay, not the same type, but two different types of enemies, and that's all you would get. And then the occasional mental patient that would attack you. For the most part, you are relatively safe from the other patients. They are mental patients that will come in groups at certain parts and hunt you down, screaming and yelling at the top of their lungs, but they're not the worst enemy. The worst enemy are the stalkers, the enemies that the three enemies, that's about it. The three enemies that will consistently wander around four actually, or five. They will actually wander around a certain area and actively look for you, and disappear or reappear. The only issue I can say I have with that is, with the game, is that the stalkers seem to have magical teleporting powers, as opposed to the grunts in Brute and Amnesia, who, since they were the same type of enemy, seeing one showing up after you've escaped another one, it would make more sense. But in this case, saying the most famous, the poster boy for the Amnesia, for the Outlast games, Chris Walker or Wake, no,
Walker.
not Walker. Yeah,
Walker,
Chris
yeah.
Walker. Yeah, Chris Walker. Yeah, he has the oh yeah, he's a former soldier that went nuts. Well, gee, with a name like Chris Walker, I wouldn't assume he used to be a soldier. I'm sorry, but he has the most common name I've ever encountered. A soldier named Chris Walker. I just call him Chris Waker or Christopher Walken for fun, but I think Waker suits him much better once you get closer to understanding what the game is about. And he, yeah, he can show up for one instance. I'm down in the sewers, and he's just wandering around there. And there's like only one exit out. There's only one exit, which is a ladder that he's too heavy or just not too agile to actually reach, like the main character is. And yet he managed to get out of the sewer somehow and teleport his way out to the courtyard after you escape the sewer. And you find yourself asking, how the hell did he get here so quickly? And for the most part, you don't see them having keys. I suppose it could be assumed that Walker is going around with keys that he unlocks doors and then locks the doors after him, but he seems more in favor for bashing a door in as opposed to unlocking it and then go in and lock the door after him to trap you. They're not exactly smart. They can be tricked and they can be fooled, but they will always chase you down. My favorite is always Traeger because he's both hilarious and scary at the same time, being the only one of the few stalkers that actively talks to you, at least in Whistleblower. Also, Outlast also takes a book from Dead Space, and has the shock and the horror. You're basically walking around in an asylum where there's blood splatter on the ground, corpses everywhere, people that had their heads ripped off, and for the most part, the game is done in the dark. What people say could make it an Amnesia clone is, of course, you have a limited, you have an object that allows you to record things. You have a camcorder that has an infrared light, so you can see in the dark with it, and it expends batteries. This is sort of true. However, you can use the camcorder whenever you like. You don't have to worry about the stalkers, or anyone else actually seeing you while you're hiding in the dark. You have the upside in that regard. You also have better chances of hiding. The brutes were always, I don't know, they just didn't seem like that scary. And then these guys in Black Mount Asylum just shows up and scares the.
And so, with all that said, like with Outlast, Slender, and Amnesia, I think people are like getting the gist of like what makes these great horror games and what makes them scary, from our perspective at least.
Yeah, let's not talk too much about these games because everyone should experience on their own. Outlast has some great mysteries and great thrills, and there's still some achievements in replaying though, even though you won't be as scared the first time. But there's always Whistleblower for that. Even though I felt it was a bit of a disappointment, it still is a very scary game, and it has probably one of the best chase themes in the entire game. And you've been playing Isolation, so
Yes.
talk a little about Isolation now.
Well, okay, one sec. The alien just. Holy crap! I'm not dead. I thought I would have to restart. Okay. Anyways, yeah, Alien Isolation. So, one of the most recent horror games, actually the most recent horror game. It's been getting a bit of mixed reception. Like, everybody apparently loves the game, thinks it's an amazing, fantastic horror game, except for IGN and GameSpot. While they do bring up, I guess, what could be considered a problem, but that's also a charm and what makes the game good. Now, let me explain. I don't want to give an entire review of the game, but I will tell you guys why Alien Isolation is easily a contender for Game of the Year. It is that good. Alien Isolation is the best movie tie-in game or movie-based franchise game probably of all time. Because with Alien Isolation, it does everything that the movie did. It's loyal to the movie. It does what the movie... It provides... For those of you who are fans of the movie, it completely... It just It hits all the right notes. It does what the movie did well and amplifies it to a degree. For instance, for those of you who are watching this gameplay right now, you're looking at the Xenomorph. They got the alien, the Xenomorph, down 100%. Now, a lot of people may think, oh, the Xenomorph's been around for years. There's no way he can still be scary. That creature can still be scary. It's been overused. Wrong. Oh, you have no idea how wrong you are. Because Alien Isolation reminds us what makes the alien scary. You can't beat it. You can only run and hide from it. Even in the sequel, Aliens, where you have the Colonial Marines badasses killing a bunch of aliens, technically the aliens always still win. That was one of the main feelings. That was one of the main messages from the Alien movies, that the alien in itself is sort of a horrific force of nature. It can't be beaten. You can avoid it, you can try to outlast it, outlast, but you can't beat the alien. That was kind of the point of the movies, and the game and Alien Isolation completely understands that and amplifies that. I'm sorry, repeating myself. The alien in Alien Isolation, like so many horror games that have come out nowadays, you can't kill the alien. Just like you can't kill Chris Walker, Slenderman, or the grunts from Amnesia. You can't kill the alien. And like those games, it stalks you. Yes, it is taking a similar formula from Amnesia, Outlast, Slender. It does take a similar formula, but it has a completely different twist with it. You do have weapons. You do have equipment. I have a flamethrower, and in the main campaign, because I'm doing survival. Holy shit! What are you doing here? God damn it!
You died again.
I didn't know he could. Fuck. I was just checking out my inventory. Okay.
Well, it's kind of the thing. It's real-time inventory. I know that much. It's real-time inventory, so you gotta to check around while you check your inventory.
It like, the alien is always scary. Sure, you know what the alien looks like, but even after so much parody and usage, the game reminds you what makes the alien scary. It's an animal. It's a vicious hunting. It's a predatory animal, and that makes it all. And gameplay wise, they made the alien even more scary because it's unpredictable. Maybe Chris Walker, Slenderman, and the grunts, they always have once or twice a certain pattern they have to follow. Like, they're going to go this way, then they're going to leave. Or they're going to have set pieces like that. While you do have a couple set pieces with the alien, 99% of the time, or 90% of the time, the alien is unpredictable. There is no set path. There is no predetermined pattern for the alien. It is completely random. It makes you feel like the alien is a living creature, and you're trying to outsmart a living creature, which not only makes the game all the more terrifying, it makes it a great stealth game. It's like it's a stealth strategy game where you're trying to outsmart your opponent, being this killer alien. The alien also, unlike all those other games, like Slender, you can get away from him. Like, if he sees you, you have the chance to get away from him. In Outlast, the enemies don't kill you right away. Like, they'll damage you and hurt you and throw you around. In Amnesia, even the grunt, it takes a few hits for them to kill you. In Alien Isolation, when the Xenomorph sees you, you either have to run for your life, and you're probably going to die, or hopefully, you have a device like a flamethrower or a shotgun, something that can stun the alien and scare it away. Because if the alien sees you, it's not going to take a few hits to kill you. It will kill you instantly. Insta-kill. As you guys have been seeing throughout this video, it has killed me several times. Several times. And Alien Isolation gets horror movies. It gets it. It keeps what makes Alien, the Alien franchise, scary. The alien is in the shadows. The alien is an unstoppable force of nature. The alien is intimidating. It's scary. It scares you. Not just with jump scares, but the mere horror of, oh man, I really don't want the main character to get caught and killed by this thing, like the great horror movies did. The great horror movies were great because you cared about the character and you were scared by the villain. Alien Isolation replicates that. You are intimidated and scared by the Xenomorph, and seeing as how you're playing the player character, so you care about yourself, you don't want to die horribly, It immerses you, it scares you. Alien Isolation is a magnificent horror game, and it hits all the right marks, and it gets what makes horror horror. So Johan, can you agree that from all these games we've talked about, Outlast, Amnesia, Slender, and now Alien Isolation, simply phenomenal game, can you see from a certain perspective, like my perspective, from my perspective I see it this way, that horror movies have really, really lost the mark, and horror video games are really just better than them nowadays?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, of course, there's always gonna be a movie coming out that will be a good and genuine horror movie. But right now, horror movies in general aren't the big selling point. The actual horror that you're looking for, are games that, are in games, are in horror games. The zombies sort of have gotten their return in the series like The Walking Dead, and horror has found its place in video games. Mostly because in a horror, we want to be scared. We watch horror movies to be scared, but in a horror video game, you take the shoes as the protagonist. You take the role as the one being hunted, and it's your job to survive. So, on a whole, I think video game horror, when done right, can be much better than movie horror. But that's, of course, that it's not entirely true. There's still pretty decent horror movies out there, and there will definitely be decent horror movies to be made in the future as well. But right now, for our fair share of scares and to always be on our toes, I feel the games have an advantage. And that advantage will always be you are the one being chased down. You're not watching the person being chased down. It's up to you to make sure you survive and move onward.
Exactly. That's a very good point. And holy shit! Fuck me. Anyways.
I think you just did.
I think. Like, Alien Isolation, just to get back to it, and what Outlast Amnesia did, like, a lot of people confuse horror for just being jump scares, or a lot of people confuse horror for just scary atmosphere. Alien Isolation has both of those, but people, you need to understand, horror is fear. It's not simply like surprise, because a jump scare is a frightful surprise. Alien Isolation and Outlast and Amnesia, Slender,
and that has been overused a lot.
Yes, jump scares, very much so. But jump scares can still be done right. There's nothing wrong with a good jump scare as long as it's not the entirety of something. Which is what horror movies basically have done down to.
Well,
horror movies have confused horror with jump scares. Not video games, though.
Yes. What Amnesia and Outlast... Okay, Amnesia isn't really as much as about jump scares, as there is more, the monster is coming. But Outlast is really good at this with jump scares, and that's Dead Space is too. Because the focus isn't really... A jump scare in schlock movies, so to speak, is always a monster jumps out and attack you. And it's become predictable. In Outlast... jump scares can come at any time, but it's generally the atmosphere. It is the atmosphere that does it for the most part. So when a jump scare, because you are prepared that it will come from anywhere, and it makes you paranoid, and it makes you scared, and it makes you worried. So when the jump scare actually comes, you're still not really prepared for it because you've been scaring yourself half to death already.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, one time when I was playing. One point when I was playing Whistleblower, and then there's this cannibal character, and previously I had encountered this other patient that wandered around saying, I have an itch. So he had been droning on for a good while, and I knew the guy with the chainsaw was moving about in the cannibal, as I call him, or the guy with the chainsaw was moving about outside, and I just assumed. I rounded a corner, and then I just heard someone behind me say, I have an itch. And it's like, oh, it's you again? You decided to follow me? And I turn around, and it's the cannibal. Obviously, everyone saw that coming. But when I first encountered that happened, I did not see it coming, and it scared the shit out of me as it was right behind me, and I just spun around and bolted as fast as I could. So that's a good jump scare. You build up a moment, and then you either choose not to pay it off, or you make a payoff. But making a jump scare actually legitimately scary and not just being a cheap scare, it can be difficult. It usually has with build up and atmosphere. Now some do a good job with making a build up and making people think that there's gonna be a jump scare soon, and then not deliver the said jump scare.
Yeah.
Or deliver the jump scare. If it's done, you'll still be frightened by the jump scare. But it's all about atmosphere. It's all about atmosphere, and video game horror, as generally the games we've talked about, they've nailed the atmosphere. They nailed the feelings and emotions that they want to come across, and then play on them.
And exactly to make
Amnesia, you're
to
trapped
make
in
a really
a
bad
dark,
reference.
damp castle.
Yeah, to make a really bad reference, it's all about, well, isolation. You feel isolated. You feel helpless. Like right here in Alien Isolation, you're stuck aboard a space station right above a gas giant. There's no help. The alien has killed mostly everyone on the space station, and those people who are alive are either scavengers who will kill anyone they see for supplies, or are just scared shitless and just waiting to die. And the sense of isolation, like there's no help. And the same thing with Outlast. You're stuck in a mental asylum surrounded by crazy people. There's no police. There's no guys with guns coming to help you. You're trapped in a lawless, helpless world.
And Slender, you're trapped in a dark forest, and an Amnesia, and it's in a dark castle.
Yes.
Of course, that's kind of obvious, but still. And as for Alien Isolation, being trapped on a space station and all that stuff, well, you know how the old classic saying goes, in space, no one can hear you scream.
Exactly, except for all the people watching this video.
I mean, I'm really glad for what... Yeah. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to actually get my hands on Isolation and play it, because it sounds like they're actually going back to the original movie that was actually about being scared. A lot of players are complaining that there are being complaints about it, and it seems to have a little to do with the fact that they were expecting something along the lines with colonial marines and all that stuff. But seriously, guys, Colonial Marines was not about aliens. It's about a bunch of guys in a Call of Duty skin shooting monsters. That's what Colonial Marines was. Sure, I'm sure the game is good in its own way, but it wasn't really an alien game. Because the original Alien wasn't about a bunch of muscle-bound Arnold Schwarzenegger wannabes going around saying, "Get out! Get to the chopper!" No, it was about a woman. It was about a woman, a very badass woman, trapped in a ship alone with a monster out to kill her. And that's what they've been recreating here. Now, I can't say if they've done it well until I see it myself, but from what I hear about actual reviews from people who actually played the game, and from Ryan here, it sounds like they actually managed to get it down pretty well.
Exactly.
Will it fuck up continuity? Honestly, I don't really care about Alien Universe continuity. I mean, I'm not that big of a fan. I'm a fan of horror games, and if this game is a good horror game, then I guarantee I will be playing it.
Yeah, exactly. What else was I going to say? Yes. When's the last time we saw a horror movie trailer where we knew what to expect? We knew it was going to be jump scares. Like, recently, fuck. One sec. Okay, one sec. Okay, the recently released Annabelle, which was supposed to be a horror movie based on a scary doll. Now, dolls can be scary. Creepy, inanimate objects can be scary. And they botched it up by making it a bunch of jump scares. Which is exactly the problem with horror movies nowadays. Like, everybody thinks it's jump scares. we haven't, like I said, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself here, but we haven't seen a good horror movie that reminds us what horror is. Like right here, Alien Isolation treads back to Alien, and what made Alien scary: the helplessness, the fear, the not knowing where the alien is, what it will do to you. It's just what makes horror horror? What makes things scary is the unknown. The unknown is the scariest of all, and there's so much unknown with the alien, and they bring that back. You don't know where it is. You don't know if it's going to see you. There are no straight answers like, am I safe? I don't know. It's the unknown which is scary, the unknown which is horrifying, not boo! You get where I'm coming from? And oh shit, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Did not see you coming, buddy.
Yeah, boo! Here I am! Be afraid! No.
But yeah, but that's basically it. That's all I can really say or think of. It's like, maybe, eventually, we will get a good horror movie that realizes what made the original Alien so scary. What made Poltergeist so scary. The Exorcist. What made... Hell, even the first Nightmare on Elm Street, while a lot of people say Nightmare on Elm Street wasn't scary, the first Nightmare on Elm Street did have some fear to it. It was scary in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe eventually Hollywood will realize, hey, you know what makes something scary? Let's not focus on jump scares. Let's not go boo. Let's scare the audience by making themselves scared. Let's create an atmosphere. Let's create an environment. Let's create a mystery that scares people. Let the unknown, let what the audience doesn't know scare them.
Yeah.
Or you know, just put a big freaking black scary dickhead alien in the way. Jesus. Cause swore he's...
Oh hey. Oh hey! Oh hey, that sounds like Mara from Shin Megami Tensei.
No, this is Xenomorph. Okay, I think just before we end this commentary, any last words, Johan? Any horror games you would recommend? I absolutely recommend Alien Isolation. Like I said, it's a contender for Game of the Year. But any other horror games that you would recommend for Game of the Year?
Well, I definitely recommend Outlast. I definitely recommend Outlast. Even if it's not scary, there's other times you will be playing it through. The first times you play through the game, you will be shitting your pants. You will literally be shitting your pants.
Yeah, and I humbly recommend Slender the Arrival, Amnesia the Dark Descent, and of course the recently released Alien Isolation. If you guys are wondering what to buy October, I would either say if you're looking for an action game, you'd go with Shadow of Mordor, but if you're looking for a true horror game for this Halloween season, and are you? God dang it, he got me. Okay. It would definitely be Alien Isolation. So, I'm the Gamertron. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. October is here, the month of Halloween, the month of horror, so let us get scared once again. Thank you for joining me, Johan.
Yep, it's been a pleasure, man. Yeah, that's about it.
And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Okay, actually, just before we go. Okay, I'm gonna give that alien some payback. Come on, you bastard. I'm right here. One sec. Where are you? Hey! Eat flame. Yeah, run, you bitch. Okay, I think that's a way to end a video, and I'll see you guys later.